And hello, everyone. We are just waiting for people to arrive, but thank you for joining us. We can see people are arriving. We've just been having a chat and making sure that everything is working.
Success.
Just let a few people in. All right, wow, 17 people. That's exciting. I'm going to raise my hand and say hi, or I'll do it this way. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you to anyone who's saying hi. We will get started very shortly, but I'll just want to thank Emily for being our host today,
Thank you for having me.
Nikita for being our co-host and co-presenter. But
Thank you.
everyone's got these AI bots now, but I'll let you in because I do the same thing. All right. We've got 20 people in the meeting room, so let's go.
Wow.
Welcome, everyone.
Awesome. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by welcoming you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. This session is being recorded and it will be available to you all after our little meeting. And if you have questions throughout, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll come to a little Q&A at the end of today's session. And it'll be about 45 minutes followed by the Q&A. So we've got Lyndon and Nikita who are going to chat to you all today about all of their expertise. So I will hand over to Lyndon next. Thank you so much, Lyndon.
Thank you, Emily. So today is talking about cybersecurity, but talking about business IT, cybersecurity, and how it fits together with the whole business. So one question that we all want to ask is, how secure are we? And a lot of businesses think, oh yeah, we've got it covered. I run an IT business, so I'm hoping that you all think that, you've got it covered. But what does that mean? IT support, yep, tick. You've got the right tools, tick. You've got subscriptions to antivirus software and security software, email filtering software, backup solutions, and you get a bill every month in most cases. But if we ask you, how secure are you really? Would you be able to answer clearly? Your IT provider does usually know what they're doing, but the business isn't focused on the whole picture. So sometimes gaps open up in the process and governance. The things IT isn't managing. So we can't be responsible for all components of the business. So I've got a question for you, and we're going to pop that up on the screen. How confident are you in your current security position in your business? So we're going to ask a little poll. We've only got 4 of these. So we'd ask you if you could just fill that poll in for us. And if you're involved in the business, then answer it as to what you think. If you own the business, give us your answer. If you're in IT, give us your answer. If you could just fill that in for us, that would be great. All right, good. We've got some extremely confidence, 29%. We've got some somewhat confidence, 57%, neutrals, 7%, not confident, 7%. So there's some good answers there. Extremely confident is great. And that means that hopefully you've got a good understanding of, where your business is at, what technical resources you've got in place, but also what business processes you have in place. All right, let's move on. So today I've brought Nikita Rayner from Secura Advisory. She is an expert in the governance side of the business and side of the discussion. So we're going to have two sides of the discussion today. We're going to have it from an IT perspective, from a managed services, from the technical perspective, and we're going to have a message and an understanding and an education, if you like, from where governance and regulation and compliance sit within our businesses and how we should be taking note of that. So that's where Nikita will speak to. One more poll from me. Who is ultimately responsible for IT in your business? Can you put them in order, ideally? We've got 5 responses. That's cool. I'm just going to wait a few more. Good. Just a couple more seconds. All right. I think that's it. So what we've got there is higher number in business owners, directors, getting equal with leadership management and every employee and our IT provider or MSP. Now, I did make a bit of a trick question because it's who is responsible for IT security in your business? So if we move on, I'll go through that for a second. One thing that I am starting to have more conversations with my clients about and people we talk to about is that IT security, like almost no other component in IT, is one of the things that we have to share. We have to take responsibility for each component of what we own within that discussion. So as your managed service provider, I can take ownership and responsibility for the technical deployment, the technical monitoring, the management of the tools and the solutions that we implement. But what I can't take ownership for and what I can't be responsible for is the business strategy, the risk position, your acceptance of risk, how much, whether you want to invest in certain tools, certain solutions, and also what training and advice and compliance requirements do you put within the business. So that may mean staff have to follow certain policies when certain requests come through and things like that. So if we look at this in order, I see it that yes, ultimately the business owner and directors or board are responsible. Apologies if it's missing the bottom part of the slide. Oh, yep, there we go. Got rid of the bar along the bottom. So yeah, so ultimately the owner is responsible. Then that flows down to leadership and management team because they're overseeing the staff, overseeing the policies, the procedures, and what's implemented within the business. Now, from the bottom up, the IT provider certainly is responsible for doing their job, implementing the right tools, providing the right advice, giving expert opinion on what should be done within your business to keep you secure and keep you safe, and providing the tools and the processes for that. but then between the two of us, all employees and the whole team. So it's a shared responsibility. And so that's one of the key things that we're going to be talking about today. And when we talk about cybersecurity, a lot of people think of the big disaster. They've been hacked, someone's got into their system, their data's been encrypted, they've had a ransom request, the business has been brought to a standstill. But as we said in the promotion of this webinar, most of the security problems don't have to be a big disaster. They could just be someone has access to something that they shouldn't have. Someone has permissions or has been left with permissions that they don't need access to. So it might not be that they've gone to break into something, it's just that the permissions were never there, or the different levels of access weren't in place. Implementing AI tools by staff without the business approval. This is a big one for now. It's a thing we're now calling shadow AI. People, if the business doesn't have a strategy around AI, staff will start to go, oh, I'll use my own, or I'll do my thing. And the business really needs to understand what is the impact of AI and technology and other things being brought into the business that you don't have control over. Of course, there's multi-factor authentication. That's a big one. It's been discussed for the last few years. And if you don't have that, then we need to talk. Apps that aren't approved, emails that look legit and someone's clicked on them. So again, all these small gaps can come in if there's not a process around what's happening with those. And regulators, insurers, and clients are increasingly expecting us to do better. And they want to see proof of that. Moving on. So obviously I need to talk about the technical responsibility. What's the MSP's job? So our job really is to implement the technical layers and manage and monitor what's happening with your IT systems. So when I say technical layers, we look at identity and access. Now, that's a word that we use in IT, but when we say identity and access, it's who are you? What should you have access to based on your role and your responsibilities within the business? And that identity, if that's compromised, that is something that someone else could get access into the system. Obviously, email and someone sending a phishing email or getting access to your systems via being tricked, or someone being tricked into giving their credentials. Devices and endpoints, they're your computers, they're your servers, they're your basically network environment of your business. Obviously, your data, is it backed up? Is it secure? And then your staff and training. But what we're talking about here is if the technical solutions are being implemented without any discussion or interest and engagement from the business ownership, and they're not doing their part, then we're leaving gaps. And so what we see is that shared engagement between the business ownership, the leadership, the business processes, policies, and the technical implementation is where we can cover off, that total solution. And so it's being more deliberate about how we're managing security. Next slide. So again, this is just a small diagram to show I see that the business is responsible for strategy, priorities, the risk appetite, or, are you happy to accept some risk or not? What you invest in or your budget, and obviously your policy and compliance. And we'll talk more about compliance and what impacts that has on your business, and it may have impacts that you aren't in control of. And then obviously IT, technical delivery, day-to-day operations, help desk, support, making sure that your people can do their job, that your systems are up, and you're able to get access to your email, your data, and your, operations. So it's IT's job to do the technical side, and we liaise and consult with the business, and the business consults with IT to make sure that we're covered. So this is where I sort of stop going through the IT side of things, and we start talking about, well, what's it look from the other side? And more to the point, how do we put controls and checks in place to make sure that both sides of the coin are talking to each other and are meeting, those requirements? And so how does technology meet business and the governance of business? So I'm going to introduce Nikita. And Nikita, I guess was wondering, in your discussions with SMBs, you're probably seeing a lot of people who may understand that they're technical requirements and may understand, that they've got an IT provider and they're doing their job, but do you see a disconnect between the business discussion and the technical discussion?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Lyndon. Of course, so very familiar with the situation. So almost every business I think that I've worked with has solid IT in place, and that is genuinely good. The technology foundation matters, but what I've been seeing consistently is a layer above the technology that is either informal or undocumented or simply not there yet. And the reason is that there's not negligence. It's just that nobody told them that this is their layer to own. And this is what I want to cover today. So hi everyone, Lyndon has already introduced me. I'm Nikita Raina, and I run a cyber governance practice called Secura Advisory, which is a fancy way of saying that I do spend most of my days turning the stuff that keeps business owners up at night into a plan that they can actually act on. And yes, I do find compliance interesting. My friends have accepted this about me. So I do a lot of boring work, but I definitely try to make it interesting for you. So moving on. So moving on to the next slide, I would like to talk to you about something. So let me paint a picture of what I mean. And at any point, if you have questions, more than happy for you to just pop that into the chat and we'll just answer it at the end of the session. So most businesses in this room have IT support. I've already covered that. You have your tools, you have your provider, and you pay a bill. And a lot of that provider does genuinely does good work, and they do protect you. You have your patching that Lyndon explained, your antivirus, your monitored backups, and that is all real. But here are three things that I see repeatedly: that they have IT support, but they can't fill in a client security questionnaire. They do have backups, but they have never actually tested a restore. And they don't have an incident response plan. They have a provider, but they don't have no signed cybersecurity policies and no AI usage rules for the staff. Someone did ask me about the main risk around AI, so I will definitely come to that on the end, because AI right now is a very hot topic, considering all the AI tools that we have, Claude or ChatGPT and other that people use. So we will cover that separately at the end. So coming back to the slides, IT manages the technology, and then governance manages the decisions around it. Now, those are different jobs, and most SMBs I know have one without the other. So moving on. So I want to tell you a story, and bear in mind that it's a real business story. Now, I have changed a few details here and there, but this situation plays out regularly. Now, accounting firm, 14 staff, and they have a good IT provider, have never breached up till now. Now, if you ask the owner, she would say, yes, we have security sorted. That's all handled. And then a major client, but existing clients, I'm not even talking about a new client, send through, when it's time for a contract renewal, send through a vendor security questionnaire. Now, it has almost 40 questions. Now, trust me on this, I usually work with a lot of third-party questionnaire, and 40 I would say, is the least side of it. The questionnaire are nowadays keeps on getting longer and longer, and they want to know everything about you. They want to understand that do you have a documented incident response plan? They want to know, do you have a cybersecurity policies that your staff has signed? They want to know what your data breach notification process looks like. And not just yes or no questions, they want evidence of that too. And in this incident, in this story, she could not answer a single one of them. Now, not because that her business was badly run, no, but because nobody told that these were her questions to answer. She thought security was the thing that IT providers doing. And it turns out security is the thing that IT provide does. And also when we talk about MFA, when we talk about the technological controls, that technological layer, but there's a whole layer of things that belongs to the owner. And she just never saw the layer, which is the governance layer. Now I'll have to also ask you a question. Let me put out the question on the screen and I would love to have your answers. So do you know, based on whatever industry you're from, do you know what cybersecurity obligations actually apply to your business? I'll wait for your answers. Okay, getting there. And I'm asking this because the answer tells you something useful, right? There are no, of course, wrong answers, just an honest ones. And whatever the result, we are going to show you exactly to do with it. And there I can see most of the answers, around 71%, 58% are around the second option, which is sort of, they do have the broad idea. And there it is. That's a spread that exactly I see in the real world, where some of them do understand certain things, but it's very rare that everyone understands what sort of cybersecurity obligations they are. And now let me show you where these obligations actually come from, because once you know three sources, the whole picture will make sense. Now moving on to the next slide. Thank you. So your security obligations don't come from one place, and they come from three. And most businesses in this room know about one of them at best. That's from my personal experience as well. So the first one, it's the law. If your business holds personal information about anyone, and by anyone, I mean your customers, your clients, your employees, you have the obligation under Australian Privacy Act. That is something that you can't brush it off. And if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer here, anyone who's a conveyancer, anyone who's in real estate, there is a significant new one landing on the 1st of July this year, the AML reforms, anti-money laundering reforms. And that brings professional services, all of the professional services under these obligations for the first time. So this is not a future problem. This is this financial problem for a lot of people in this room. The second one is your contracts. The moment you sign a contract with a larger client, maybe a government body, or a key supplier, you often inherit their security requirements. Now it's fine in the print. They're allowed to ask you for evidence, but you would have noticed that they are doing it more and more. So the story I just told you, the questionnaire, that was a contractual obligation arriving in someone's inbox without no warning, right? So the third that I want to cover is your insurer. So anyone who has renewed cyber insurance recently or doesn't have it or wants to do it, you would have noticed that the form is getting longer and longer, and insurers are now asking specifically what controls you have in place. And if you just tick the boxes and you cannot actually prove, your policy may not be even pay out when you need it. So they expect you to have basic controls. So in case you're raising a claim, they can straight away dispute it. So they expect you to have minimum security expectations as of now. And this is not a legal obligation, but it is an obligation that could cost you everything sense. So law, contracts, and insurance. Three sources. And here is the uncomfortable part that I want to tell you. Moving on to the next slide, please. So not knowing about an obligation, of course, doesn't remove it, right? The regulator doesn't care about that nobody told you. That was a genuine mistake. The client also doesn't care. The insurer definitely doesn't care. But something I want to cover is, and I really want you to hold on to this, is every single one of these obligations are manageable. They are not mysterious. They are not even that expensive to address. If you approach them deliberately rather than in panic or after something has gone wrong, then that's altogether a whole different story. And the businesses that struggles are the ones who find out the hard way, the breach, the lost contract, or any declined claim. That is when they take all these things seriously. And the businesses that do well are simply who looked up all of this before that they had to. Then their risk is inherently lower if they do have their basic controls in place. Now I want to ask you another questions as well. Before I show you the framework, I want to ask you one thing, because your answer to this is actually will be the most useful data point in this room right now. So if your biggest client, your most important relationship called you tomorrow and said, "Hey, we need you to prove that your business takes security seriously before we renew this contract," how would you respond? Again, no right answers, just an honest one. Take your time and think about it, and let's see what it comes with. A few responses. Okay. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of inclination towards option B and a little bit towards C and D as well. And I think this is what I've seen for most of the participants as well, that my clients do, that they could answer most of it, but they couldn't definitely not prove all of it. Or the work is done, but it's not documented. And this is almost always where most businesses land. And here is what I want you to hear, that this is not a failure. This is actually the easiest problem to fix, because work's already there. You just need to make it visible. And this is exactly what this framework does. Now let me show you. Okay, so maturity framework. Here is what that phrase actually means. So it's just a structured answer to the question, how good is good enough? And how do I know? That is it. It takes the impossible question, are we secure, into something that's measurable. Now, the framework that we work for business of your size is called SMB 1001. Now, it was specifically built for small and medium businesses and not scaled down to enterprise stuff. We have different regulations for that, and we have different framework for that. Also, it's not government and defense requirements as well, but businesses like the ones that are in this room. And it has levels, simply like a staircase. Now, starting from the bronze, it's at the bottom step, your basic hygiene. Your firewall is on, your antivirus is running, things do get backed up, and your staff has done the basic awareness training, right? If your business does nothing else, you should be at bronze. And honestly, if a professional service business in 2026 is not even at bronze, then there is definitely real work to do, and it needs to start now. Silver is where it gets interesting for most of the people in this room, because silver is not really more about technology, right? Silver starts by asking business questions. Have your staff done training? Do you have a process for invoice fraud? The scam where someone emails your accounts pretending to be a supplier with the new bank details. Silver is where security stops purely being IT and job become partly yours, I would say. Now, if you move to gold, gold is genuinely an credible standard. Gold is where you can find, where you can hand a client that 40 questions questionnaire and not even break a sweat. Gold covers the technology layer, yes, but a substantial part of gold is governance, your documented policies, your incident response plan, and AI usage policy. And that is what gold looks like. Now, moving on. Here's the thing about gold that most people don't realize going in, right? It is two jobs, not one. The technology layer, which Lyndon covered, your firewalls, your endpoint detection response, your MFA, your DMARC, your patching. This is your MSP's job. And Lyndon teams handle that side cleanly. The governance layer, on the other hand, your cyber policy, your incident response plan, your AI acceptable use policy, how to use AI, the invoice fraud procedure, your digital asset register, and the ongoing training program. This is not in an IT support contract, and this is the part that most of the SMBs are missing. And this is the part I work on. Your MSP handles the left, and the right side is where most SMBs have gap. And that is right where I come in. So moving on. Here's one of the most reassuring things that I can tell you. That is, the prior slides were not to scare you off. I just want to say that it comes from actually doing these assessments. So most businesses are doing more than they think. They have their controls. What they are missing, that I've already mentioned, is the evidence. The training has happened, of course, but there is no record. Nobody at the end did a form saying that, okay, they have completed that training, and that itself is an evidence, or nobody recorded that training. Now, the backups have been running, but they have not been tested, and there is no log for that as well. So the policy also exists in someone's head, but nobody bothered to sign it. Now, closing the evidence gap is the easiest win available to most SMBs. It's not about spending more money. It's about documenting what you're already doing and making sure that you can prove it when someone asks. So moving on. So if I can leave you with one image today, deliberate security stands on 3 legs. All right, good technology, your managed IT, the foundation. Good governance, your policies, plan, and obligation layers. And third thing is your owner accountability. You treating security as a business risk you own and not a bill you pay and forget. Take away one of these 3 legs and the tools tips over. Great IT with no governance still tips over, and great policies with no management behind still tip over. The good news is that none of the 3 legs is out of reach. They just have to be deliberate. Thank you, Lyndon. I'll hand it back to you. Can you talk about how you approach the first step with the client, please? Sorry, you're on mute, Lyndon.
Sorry, you'd think I'd know technology. Thank you, Nikita. That was an awesome discussion on, what good security looks like, but where it's not just about tools, not just about governance, not just about what's happening in the business. It's that full shared responsibility. So if we move on to the next slide, what I was wanting to, go through, and this is where I do want to have a couple of questions for you, Nikita. I guess if we think about how managed IT, security, governance all fit together, you talk a lot about the governance, the compliance, and you work with businesses of various different sizes. And as you mentioned before, there are enterprise level and, for some businesses, even small businesses, they have a requirement for even higher standards, including the ISO 27001 and other standards. I guess, where does the difference between a standard for almost every business versus a standard like ISO fit? What's the difference, and what would make a business choose, I need to go to one versus the other?
Okay. Absolutely. I can answer that. So there are different frameworks. They all basically, in a nutshell, mean the same thing, but it really depends on your firm size as well. When we talk about ISO, it's the heavyweight, your big company version. It's expensive, it's externally audited as well, and can take over a year. Now, on the governance side of it, you have an essential aid framework, and people in the audience would have heard about this term as well, this framework as well. It's more oriented towards the government as well as the defense world. Now, SMB 1001 is the version which is exactly built for businesses of your size. Small ideas, achievable scales. So if you ever outgrow it, it is definitely a stepping stone to ISO as well, not a dead end. And SMB itself is not legally mandatory. I'm going to say that, but the obligation underneath is often are your privacy law, your reforms, your client contracts, and SMB 10001 is the most practical way to access all of them at once and have something to show for it. So the framework is optional, but what it helps you is you meet frequently. What it helps you answer all those questions, and it's a good starting point or stepping point to do an ISO as well in the future.
Okay. So from a framework perspective, it's helping us to align the technical requirements, the business requirements, those governance requirements. So it can help any business look at, okay, well, our IT provider is doing these tasks. Oh, hang on, there's one missing. So we need to talk about that. But also from a governance and a business management perspective, oh, we've got this policy, but we don't have this policy. And one thing that I have had asked in the past, and I think probably this is a common misconception in some ways around those, disaster recovery planning, business continuity plans, incident response planning, and things like that. They sound like they're IT things, but they are, again, a shared sort of responsibility, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think IT provider, as I already said, that it does cover the technology layer, and people do think that, hey, we have a good IT provider, so isn't this already covered? But a substantial chunk of every year, especially the gold one, is the governance, right? And this is not normally that covers an IT support provider covers, and that is not a criticism to your provider. It's just a different jobs. So it's the difference between someone, I would say, maintaining your car and someone making sure you're insured and licensed to drive it. So that is how both of our practice are complementary to each other. And at the end, we should understand that as the IT provider, and even us, we are responsible, of course, to do our task, but the obligation, the accountability sits with the business. So we should not think that security is just an IT job. It is a business job, and the businesses need to be involved. And of course, the technical controls is something that IT provider can does, but the behavioral controls, that emotion, that maturity needs to come to the business, and you need to have that sense of ownership when it comes to security as well.
But it's a partnership. We need to be advising what is
Of
required.
Course.
And obviously the business needs to understand and take into account their position in that. And so that's, I guess, why in some cases, looking at number 3 there, it says why security still feels reactive. Sometimes you think, oh, I've got all the tools, I'm paying my bill, I've got my antivirus, I've got my email security, but then something happens and you're still reacting because not everything's in place. Or as you said before, that that request or questionnaire comes through and it's like, hang on, I can't answer all of these things, so I'm reacting again. Yes, we are, as like number 4, we are layering security. We are building the technical layers, but we need those governance layers and those business ownership layers to work in partnership, with those. And the SMB 1001. So one of the things, if anyone looks at our website now, we are aligning our business model and our services around that SMB 1001 model. So it gives us a point to go, right, what does good look like? How do we know that we are delivering good solutions? And that's why when we come and talk to you and have catch-ups with our existing clients, we are starting to raise this awareness of what this framework is. Again, it's not something that is as big as the ISO things. It doesn't cost tens of thousands of dollars every year to be audited. It's just a framework that says this is what good looks like and how can we build that into your business and into what we deliver. And so that's where, when we start talking about these things, that's what SMB 1001 is. And it also, as we've been talking about, it talks about, like number 2 there, where managed IT support fits and where it stops. There is a point where we can only do a certain amount, and then the business is responsible for, did we approve that? And I'm not trying to sell, everything that we say must be approved. There's a partnership. We need to work together and say, right, what is the risk? If we do this, we will mitigate this part of the risk. If we don't do this, what does that open up? And again, from a business perspective, that may be acceptable. It may not be something that is needed to be done. And that's why we want to have those conversations. So again, we are starting to have much more regular conversations with our clients, and especially our managed services clients on that ongoing basis, so that we can build that partnership and build that relationship. So that's what we've discussed today. Again, if there's any other questions, please, put them in the chat. We've got a few more minutes left. We're certainly going to open it up in a moment for some questions. But one of the things that we are really wanting to do with this is we're not trying to bash down your throat, but businesses need to stand up and do more. It's more about having that open discussion about making sure that we are working together and sharing the responsibility of keeping your businesses safe and secure, and making sure that not just safe, secure, but by working together and putting the right systems in place, following a framework that helps us to, again, know what is good, then we can work together to move forward, and that will make your business more secure, more efficient, more effective, and then we've got those answers when people ask, and we've got that proof when people ask. So what we are looking to offer, and again, we're not trying to sell here, but we are certainly looking to offer our resources. Both Nikita and I would join you on a 30-minute Teams call, just like this, but one-on-one with your business. And we would basically put together a very quick snapshot of what does your business look like in regards to comparing against, say, the SMB 1001 Silver framework. Now, as I said, there's gold right through to, I think, platinum and diamond. So as soon as you go over gold, it becomes a formal audited process. But moving from bronze to gold is a huge leap, is huge steps forward. And again, as Nikita said, that basically gives you the response that you would need to answer almost any of those questionnaires. So our 30-minute discussion would allow you to say, okay, what do you do in this area? And if you're working with us, then sure, we will talk about the technical sides of things. But then we would also ask, okay, what are we doing about user awareness training? What are we doing about policies and procedures? Do we have that AI usage policy? Do we have an internet usage policy, and other things like that? Incident response plans. We can help you come up with the technical answers for that, but the business needs to work with us to put together the business side of that response plan. Same with disaster recovery. So incident response is more a cyber security incident. It could be that a computer or an email address got breached and someone got into private privacy sort of information about your clients or your people. Whereas a disaster recovery might be there was an issue with the building, there was an issue with the equipment, how do we get back online? So they are very different discussions and two different plans that need to be put in place. So we're not going to do all of that on the call, but what we're going to do is identify where work may need to be done and provide you a report back to say, okay, these are the areas that may need work. Sure, we would be happy to talk to you about that as well, but the initial 30-minute discussion is just to say, let's talk about your tech, let's talk about your governance and your compliance and your business, and provide that report back to you. Any other thoughts on that, Nikita?
No, so I think just to add to that, Elena, you've pretty much covered all of it. So what's depending upon what is the most pressing issue for your business, you might end up either talking more to Lyndon or talking more to me or talking both of us equally. Either way, it's the same free 30 minutes, and I would encourage everyone here to take it. Worst case, you find out you are in great shape, right? So I would highly suggest everyone to do it, and then we can see that where your business currently stands at. And then, of course, after that, what could be the next actionable steps?
Yeah, Great. So we've put a link in the chat, which you can click on. You can also scan the QR code that is on the screen there. It's completely safe. I have tested it myself. If you want to book in that assessment, that security assessment, and we do it simply just over a Teams call like this, and won't take up too much of your time. All right, so questions, I guess, is the next component. And I've left that QR code there, just in case.
And I would like to answer the question that was asked by Mark, I guess, on the main risk around AI during the session. So just I'm going to cover that. There are definitely a lot of risk with AI in businesses right now. But the most important one that I would say is the data leakage. So staff nowadays, of course, pasting client information, confidential document, or even financial data into a public AI tool, right? Without realizing that data is now sitting on someone else's servers. And it happens every day, and most businesses have no policy stopping it. The second one I would say is the other risk that I'm noticing is that there is over-reliance without verification. So you over-rely on AI to answer, and AI get things wrong, right? So if your staff are using AI outputs for a client work without checking them or without validating them, you have a professional liability problem waiting to happen. And other than that, a third point that I could think of is shadow AI, right? Like staff finding and using AI tools that the businesses has not approved and does not know about. And you definitely cannot manage a risk that you cannot see, right? So all of these three things that I've mentioned, I mean, in my head, these are the three most main risks that I'm seeing as well right now. And these are addressable by what a gold standard mentioned, right? You need to have an AI acceptable use policy. So this is what is a requirement under a gold standard for exactly this reason. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. So would you say that it's important then for businesses to have a policy around AI use, especially shadow AI use in terms of data being in those servers? Do you think that there's a solution even in terms of an internal platform for AI for businesses?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, I feel even if it's not the business requirement, everyone, regardless of requirement, are using it. We use it for a personal use case, we use for business. And because, of course, AI answers it so quickly, we tend to rely on their answers more than our own thinking, right? So I know that everyone here uses it for their professional work at some point. And of course, that tool may not be business approved as well. So see, people are going to use it. So might as well the businesses should have an approved list of AI tool that they can use, maybe a Copilot or Claude or anyone, but it should be through an approved channel. And there should be a list of do's and don'ts. How to use it, of course, it'll help you make your work easier, but you need to be mindful of what information you're putting in as well. So that's where the policy will help you on how to rightly use AI. It's not about stop using AI as a tool, but how to rightly use it.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. I was just thinking, so I've got a question that's come up from Amy about recommended AI programs that business owners should be considering for use within those businesses. How should business owners go about using AI as part of their programming and including it in their policy? What steps do they need to be taking so that their employees and all of the processes within their business can use AI?
I might grab that one.
So go for it. Yeah.
Just in regards to the specific question, yeah, there's so many platforms out there. Probably when we all started playing with AI chat, it was ChatGPT was the flavor, and it got really good really quickly, and it became something that I played with for a very long time. But then what you have to look at is, well, where is your data? And also, what are the boundaries around your data? So if your business lives and works within the Microsoft environment, then Sorry, I'm just going to do that. If your business lives in the Microsoft environment, then in the Microsoft 365 environment, using Teams, using SharePoint, using OneDrive, using data stored within that system, then it makes sense if you're going to be using it for improving productivity, for improving standard systems, that the Microsoft Copilot platform works in that environment, because it is also contained and controlled within the Microsoft platform. Now, there are other versions like the ChatGPT and Claude that have business grade and enterprise grade products. That's one of the things that you have to be aware of, that even if you are paying for a product, doesn't necessarily mean that the data is going to stay within it. You can have a personal paid subscription, and that data can still potentially be used for training of the AI system, but also it can, if it's a paid subscription that a staff member has, and it's not part of your business, then if that staff member leaves your business and they take their AI with them, your data has left with that person. So what you have to look at is, what is the business solution, and does it fit within my platform? And again, look at the appropriate solution for the platform you're working in. But again, Amy, in your scenario, the Microsoft platform makes a lot of sense, and Copilot lives within that, obviously, if it's the commercial version.
Fantastic. So another one for, I guess, both of you, really, specifically probably Nikita, but what do you think that the single most important thing a business can do right now is to improve their own security posture?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one thing that you can do to improve your security posture, talking about if you're talking about the tech side of it, I think having that level of understanding, knowing what you have and be able to prove it. So not adding a new tool, not having a bigger budget, just documentation. Because in 10 years of doing this, I would say the single most common finding that I make when I walk into a business is that not they're doing nothing, it's just that they are doing most of the right things and have absolutely nothing to show for it. So I would say evidence, capturing evidence. If the training happened, have some sort of record for it. If their policy exists, make sure that it has been signed by your senior executives. So what all you can do from right now is whatever you are doing, start documented. And that gap between doing and proving is where businesses get exposed. So I would think that is the single most important thing you can do this week before buying anything new, before start using any new tools, or before engaging anyone. Sit down and ask yourself these questions about your policy, your record of the trainings in the last 12 months, and your backups testing. Make sure everything works and make sure you have documented and evidence for everything. And if you answer to all of these 3 questions is a yes, if you say yes, then you're already ahead for most of the businesses in this room, right? And if not, then this is your starting point. That's all I would say now.
Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today and your time. It is the first one of these that we've done, and we are planning to continue to do more in this series. We will have a more dedicated AI webinar coming up probably in a month or so, and we'll be working towards that, so look out for that. But yeah, really appreciate it. And if we move to the next slide, both of us can be contacted directly, but both of us can be contacted directly, and our email addresses are on the screen. But we really would like you to, fill in that security assessment form. Let us know that you're available to have a chat, and we'd like to set up that time to go through that. As I said, it's a light discussion. We don't need to have access to your systems. We don't need to log in as an administrator. We just want to talk through what you understand your security environment to be. And, you know, if you have an existing IT provider that's not us, that's cool. We don't want to step on their toes at this point. We just want to have that, you know, discussion, and particularly around the governance and compliance space. It may be that they're doing a perfectly good job, but you need to speak to Nikita about the compliance, about the, you know, business and governance. If you're unsure about your IT, certainly, you know, talk to us and we can talk about that. But the initial discussion is really just to put a understanding and a line in the sand as to where you are at. So I think we won't keep you any longer. We promised 45 minutes with some questions, so we've done that. I don't want to push because I usually do. But unless anyone else has got anything else, we can say we are done.
I've just
Thank you so
reposted
much.
that booking link as well for anybody in the meeting who's interested in the sessions with both Lyndon and Nikita. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Just a reminder, this has been recorded, so you'll have a copy of it as well. Thank you so much for your time. And, you know, as Lyndon mentioned previously, we have another one of these lined up down the track around AI, which is obviously such a big topic for every business at the moment. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about that, there'll be information coming out shortly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you for your
everyone.
time. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.